Hello and welcome back to Sociology. Okay, so today we are learning more about elements of culture. So we're going to look more deeply into symbols, language, values, norms, technology, and material culture. So cultural symbol is anything that can stand for something else and has a particular meaning for people who share a culture. The existence of culture depends on people's ability to create and understand symbols. A symbol is something used to represent something else, like the money symbol signifies money. Last video we talked about the stop sign. Unlike animals, humans can use symbols to understand reality, transmit messages, store complex information, and deal with the abstract symbolic world. So, I want you, this is for the discussion, since we're not in person today, we are going to think of a few cultural symbols and then draw them. Don't write what they are, only draw them. Don't fold this piece of paper. What you're going to do is instead, during the discussion part, you are going to upload those drawn symbols and then put them into the discussion. We're going to try to understand what they are from each other. Okay, more about cultural symbols. So how does this connect to our linguistic landscape? Again, linguistic landscapes refers to the visibility and salience of languages on public and commercial signs in a given territory. Not only languages, again, it is gestures, symbols, things like that. So look at these two images. Let me see if I can't move myself. I can. Look at these two images and see if you can understand the cultural scripts of both of them. Take a second, pause this video. This will be part of the discussion. All right, welcome back. Let's move this back again. Okay, so cultural symbols distinguish one culture from another, affect cross-cultural views, and can unify or divide a society. Much like everything else in culture and society, they change over time. They are constantly changing. Language is the systemized usage of symbols and hearing to communicate feelings and ideas. When we say speech and hearing, language is not only speech and hearing, but it is also comprised of gestures. So American Sign Language is a very valid, very beautiful form of language. So all human societies have language. Nonverbal language consists of gender expressions and mannerisms. Cool? All right, so language is a system of shared symbols that enables people to communicate with each other. Language makes us human. Language is also racialized, gendered, and influenced by ethnicity. So I'm just going to move my head one more time. So let's look at this picture right here. So it says, no, where are you really from? What kind of cultural scripts does that particular language signify? This lower left-hand picture is an image of a black child or black young man wearing a hoodie and Skittles over his mouth. The image on the lower right-hand side is of two individuals talking to each other. So I want you to take a minute, pause this video, and I want you to write your responses. This will also be in the discussion. All right, so values. Take my head a little bit over. Okay, so values are ideas shared by the people in a society regarding what is important and worthwhile. Most of our basic values are learned early in life from family, friends, and the mass media, and other sources in our society. Because values are learned cultural products, they differ from one society to another. So what is valuable in one society is not necessarily valuable in another society. We are going to talk more about socialization in a couple weeks. So, values. Values are the standards by which members of a particular culture define what is good or bad, moral or immoral, proper or improper, desirable or undesirable, beautiful or ugly. So look at these three images, right? So the upper right-hand one identifies our construction of what is beautiful, but also cannot be what is chronologically developed, right? So this is a senior citizen or an older woman who has gray hair, and so we understand that she cannot have gray hair and simultaneously be gorgeous. So you'd have to choose either or, right? So it's a rhetoric. On the lower left-hand corner, we have these two images, one being not photoshopped, the other being photoshopped. And why is it that we are more aesthetically pleased with the one that is photoshopped rather than the one that is not? And then the very lower right-hand side, we identify that If you aren't familiar with her, this woman is named Paris Hilton. You can Google her if you're not familiar with her. But a lot of individuals, especially within the 2000s, identified that she is what was most pleasurable to be, what is most valuable. So now instead of Paris Hilton, we can identify with the Kardashians. Cool. All right, so beliefs. Beliefs are views that people share about what is true or what really exists. Belief can underlie almost any social institution or situation, right? So beliefs also vary. Everyone has different beliefs, but they are all valid. What I believe in makes it exist. What someone else believes in makes it exist. Does that make sense? So again, we're going back to this idea of postmodernism that we talked about in the earlier videos, that because we believe it, it exists. Society exists because we believe it does. We all have different beliefs, thus there is no such thing as truth when everything is true, because people believe it to be so. Does that make sense? Okay, so norms. Norms are elements of non-material culture and are rules of conduct for social expectations for behavior. These next types are incredibly important for us to know, so we are going to go in detail. This would be a really great idea or time to make sure that you have been copying down these important ideas and that you have these in your flashcards. So, folkways. Sorry, let's go back. So there's folkways, mores, taboos, laws, and then the pathology of normalcy. So, for norms. Society-specific rules of right and wrong behavior. They tell us what we should, ought, and must do, as well as what we should not, ought not, and must not do. They reflect values and thus are expectations shared by the members of society at large by the members of a particular group in society. Most are unwritten, they serve a specific purpose, some are explicit, they change over time, and most are conditional. So if you look at this image in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, it says how to use a toilet. It says, please put toilet paper on the toilet and all trash in the trash can. Thank you. So even though many cultures do use the restroom, much like the image that has the X in it on the left-hand side, we in the United States prefer to utilize the toilet, it's the right-hand side. So it might seem very foreign to some of us, but in other cultures, this is an absolutely acceptable way. Does that make sense? And then sitting on the toilet would seem abnormal. Cool? Norms organize and regulate behavior. So there are 3 different types of norms: folkways, mores, and laws. Make sure you remember all 3 of those. So a folkway is a norm that members of a society look upon as not being critical, but may be broken without severe punishment. So if someone picks their nose and eats it, you might be judged for it, but it's not going to be so severe that you're going to go to jail. Does that make sense? Mores are norms that members of society consider to be very important because they maintain moral and ethical behavior. So now with the technological advancements in communication devices, we understand that smartphones are everywhere, right? So something that is a more, right, is like not using your phone at the dinner table, or when you're on a date or having dinner with someone else, or lunch or a meal, or spending time with someone else, you're not on your phone the entire time, because it is, 1, incredibly rude, and 2, it is also it's supposed to help us maintain moral and ethical behavior. It is immoral, or it's not ethical, to have your time spent with someone else but be on the phone the entire time or texting. It is not moral or ethical to feed your babies alcohol, even though they may totally love it. Right? It is also against the law, but if we can think about this in moral and ethical standards, right? So it is immoral to allow your children to drink. Laws. They are formal rules about behavior that we define by a political authority and that has the power to punish violators, right? So no texting. In many states that's illegal. There are lots of laws that we have: no jaywalking, no murder, no burglary, no theft, things of that nature. So you can see how it goes in more severity, right? So folkways are less severe, mores are in the middle with severity, and laws are the most severe, ending up in formal political authority and punishment. Now, sanctions. Oftentimes when we hear the word sanction, we think of something that is negative. Sanction can be both positive or negative, right? So the rewards for good or appropriate behavior and penalties for bad or inappropriate behavior. So we can see that this person has a sanction of a trophy. Congrats for them. And then the person on the right has a penalty for doing something that is identified within our political authority as illegal. All right, so let's start connecting these ideas of pop culture, elements of culture, and our society, right? So pop culture are trends and social activities, and they share experiences of everyday people. So this is in elite to contrast, or this is in a contrast to elite culture, right? So nail art is pop culture. The images of these women are pop culture. They are also highly sexist, so we should also be very clear on that, right? And then we have the upper left-hand corner, we have pop culture rendition of Back to the Future. Sorry, it took me a second to remember what that was. And then we also have a contemporary pop culture exploration of the Muppets and The Walking Dead, which is exploring how individuals who grew up on the Muppets are now the ones who are predominantly watching The Walking Dead. So it is merging these two cultural realities together to create a cultural message or a meaning in regards to that. So then media and culture also can be racist, sexist, ableist, classist, all of them, right? So if we look at the lower left-hand corner, it says racism, sometimes it's subtle, right? So if we see that the only child of color is on the very left-hand side by himself, while all of the white kids are on the right-hand side together. Why is that kid sitting by himself? What cultural scripts does that create? What values does that identify? Is he valuable? Is there something wrong with him? Why is he all by himself? And on the lower right-hand side, this is a satire or cultural exploration of the Ebola infection, right? The Ebola epidemic. And so we can see that when all of the people of color have been affected with this, it's not a big deal, but as soon as it hits a white person, then it's a big deal. Then we want to interview that one white body, even though thousands of bodies of color have been affected. We can also see this in contemporary times with the Zika virus, right? So even though it's affecting people of color, not so valuable, not so important. As soon as it starts to affect affluent white bodies, then it's important. Do we follow along? Okay. So in wrapping up, we have looked at the different elements of culture. Make sure that you check into the discussion board. Next time we are going to be looking at cultural diversity, and we're going to go back to those terms that we looked at before, ethnocentrism, xenocentrism, things of that nature, and really look at the difference between multiculturalism, cultural pluralism, all of those types of things. Cool? All right, I'll see you next time.